Hello, everyone. It's Nigel once again, and welcome to another System Shock Radio Redux episode. This is going to be a re recording of episode 16. So, episode 16 was recorded around when the pandemic first started. So, I'm going to talk about the pandemic at first versus the pandemic now. And it seems like a lot has changed, but nothing has changed at the same time. Like when the pandemic first started, there was all the panic buying, and everyone was like going crazy. And now things have calmed down a little bit to the point where I don't think people are as worried, if that makes any sense. But there's still a sense of worry of when's this pandemic going to end. And then again, in New York State, there's a rumor of another shutdown of everything. So it will be like when everything first started again. So uh, we'll have to wait and see what the verdict is. But for now, that's where we are. So the pandemic first started around March, and here we are in November. Or, or about, it's been about 8 months later. 8 months since the pandemic started. But that's kind of where we are now. But next up, we talked about passion, having a passion for something, and to look up exactly what passion is. The textbook definition of passion is a strong and barely controllable emotion. And a lot of people define it as a high amount of emotion for something that they love a lot, that they're passionate about, that they really want to do. And passion, I feel like, is a powerful tool when used correctly. Now, if passion is used incorrectly to where it consumes a lot of people and causes them to push people away, I feel like that's kind of when it borders on the negative. But oftentimes, passion, when you're really passionate about something, you're striving and driving to be the best at it. So I feel like passion could be a really good thing. It depends on how you use it. Next up, we talked about Kingdom Hearts. And the thing about Kingdom Hearts is it's a game I kind of grew up with. I remember the first Kingdom Hearts game I played was, well, actually, it was two of them, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So the first was 358 over 2 days, and that's because a friend of mine back in 6th grade, he used to bring his Nintendo 3DS to school, but he had the 358 over 2 days. His cartridge with him from the old school DS, and so we would play that, and that was kind of fun. But for my own personal adventure, it was Kingdom Hearts Recoded, and wow, how about that? The first Kingdom Hearts game that I really sat down and really played was perhaps the worst one out of all. The Kingdom Hearts Recoded, a lot of people say it's unnecessary. It's an unnecessary Kingdom Hearts game, and when you look at Kingdom Hearts lore, it's a game you can skip because, in a way, it kind of retells what already happened in the first game. But I played Recoded. I had a lot of fun. Like younger me, it didn't take a lot to impress me. But when I grew older, I played other Kingdom Hearts games. Like I just played Birth by Sleep and finished that a few months ago. I finished all three stories. The interesting thing about Birth by Sleep is it's broken up into three different stories. So there's Terra's story, there's Ventus's story, and there's Aqua's story. And I just finished playing that. It was a pretty fun game, and now I'm working on Final Mix. And the cool thing is you can see how the series has evolved over time. But Kingdom Hearts is a pretty fun game, I'm not gonna lie. Even if the lore and the story behind it is kind of confusing, it's still a lot of fun. It's very action packed, and I like stuff with a lot of lore behind it, because it means they sunk a lot of hours into creating this universe for people to enjoy, for themselves to enjoy even. And They create all these characters, all these events, and they put a lot of time and thought into what they wanted their characters to be. And there's a lot of that in Kingdom Hearts. And that soundtrack, oh, that soundtrack, that's a really good soundtrack. Especially now, some of the soundtracks they use for the Disney worlds, now Kingdom Hearts is like Final Fantasy meets Disney, so you have Disney worlds, and a lot of the soundtracks for those are kind of just other Disney songs, but on loop and usually without lyrics. But their original soundtracks, like the one for Traverse Town or Castle Oblivion, really good stuff, really good stuff. And that's one of the things I really like about Kingdom Hearts, is that even if the story's confusing, there's other reasons to like, enjoy, and play it. And a lot of emotion packed in. So I'm going to beat Final Mix, and my goal is to beat all the Kingdom Hearts games, but the thing is, I can't, I can't necessarily, what's the way I can phrase this? I can't necessarily play Recoded or so. All right, here's the thing. I have the 1.5 and 2.5. They've remix on my PS4, as well as the 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, and the 1.5 and 2.5 have the cutscenes for 358 over 2 days and for Recoded, but not the actual game itself. So if you wanted to play that game, you either have to use emulation, or if you still have your DS lying around, which I think I do, you can pop in the cartridges. You got to find the cartridges. But other than that, it's a pretty cool game, a pretty cool game series, and I can't wait. That's why I haven't gotten to Kingdom Hearts 3. Don't spoil anything for me just yet. But with that being said, moving on to our next topic, again, it kind of goes hand in hand, and it's video games that will make interesting movies. Now, this is kind of an interesting one because almost anything can make a good movie, but as we saw with like the last Airbender movie, sometimes a good thing that can make a good movie or a good story to tell in movie fashion is ruined because those behind it didn't pay it justice or homage properly. And so I feel like if done right, you can have video games that would make really good movies. For example, Kingdom Hearts. Apparently there is a Final Fantasy movie. I did not know there was one. When I first recorded this episode, I didn't know there was a Final Fantasy movie until I randomly researched it, and turns out there is. Metal Gear Solid would make an interesting movie. I feel like it would pull people in. There's other games that you kind of might get away with, like, for example, Super Mario Brothers. You could probably, if done right, you could probably get away with making a movie about that. The Legend of Zelda would make a pretty interesting movie, depending on which game. Well, I can't say that because a lot of the Zelda games are really fantastic and will make awesome movies. But then there are games that were turned into movies that flopped, such as the Ratchet and Clank movie. Now, the Ratchet and Clank movie, I wouldn't go as far as to call it a bad movie. I'd say it was disappointing, though, and lacked direction. I feel like there were things that could have been done to make it a good movie, possibly even a great movie, but those things weren't done. For example, it was too much of Ratchet and the Galactic Rangers rather than Ratchet and Clank. Now, the Galactic Rangers have always been present in the Ratchet and Clank universe, but they shouldn't have taken center stage over Clank. It's Ratchet and Clank, not Ratchet and Galactic Rangers. It's Ratchet and Clank. And they did get a couple things right. For example, the Quark betrayal that happened in the original game. Chairman Drek was there, but he was swapped out for another villain, Dr. Nefarious, who, while also a Ratchet and Clank villain, wasn't introduced till later. So I feel like that could have been done differently. But if you have a video game, you have to do it justice in order for it to be a good movie. For example, a lot of people were looking forward to, and the Ratchet and Clank movies, like low score, low buyout, really ruined this. There was going to be a Sly Cooper movie, I would have been pumped for that, especially with what I heard about. It was going to be based off the first game. Clockwork was going to be the main villain. It was going to feature all the Sly characters. That sounds awesome, and I would say that Sly Cooper would be a interesting movie. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. I don't think they abandoned it entirely, but if I remember correctly, it is in development hell right now. So, and development hell, some of you may have heard that term. Like, what does that mean? Development hell is basically it's not really being worked on too much, or it's being worked on at a slow pace, and we haven't heard too much from it. There's plenty of things in development hell, and that's one of them. But uh, with that being said, Ed, let me know what you guys would like to see. Which video games, for those of you who play video games, would like to see made into a movie. I feel like a Call of Duty movie would but that one's kind of obvious. And there's already been like plenty of military movies, so I'm not sure. But anyway, we're also gonna. The last topic we talked about was blessings in disguise. There were some things that happen to you at first that you think, oh, this is bad, oh, this is terrible. But then with the power of hindsight, you realize that was one of the best things that could have happened to you. But it's all about patience and perception. And sometimes bad things happen and for seemingly no reason. You're like, why is this happening to me? But when you see what the outcome of that thing happening to you is, you'll sit back and realize, like, this was probably one of the best things. This is exactly what I needed at the time. So, I always say everything in life is either a lesson, an important lesson, or a funny story. And you're bound to have some funny stories, but you're also bound to have some important lessons. There's plenty of things that I experienced in my life, or people that I know have experienced in their lives, or even people that you may know that have experienced things in their lives, and they'll tell you it turned out for the better. And they say that experience is the best teacher. And that's definitely it. But that's going to do it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.